So I was a bulk driver for about a month. Company commander came to me and he said, well, they called me by private so-and-so at that time. He said, I got a different job for you if you want a promotion. I said, what? He said, how about I change the MOS, haul ammunition to our tanks? And I got thinking, hey, that'll get me away from here for a few hours. Sure, go back, pick up it. So I got an MOS of 4345, which is a truck driver, and I hauled ammunition up to the tanks then. And I finished out with doing that.
Wow.
But that was one reason they was looking for volunteers. Is a lot of people, if you haven't been in the service, it's a very dangerous thing to do, as much as being on the front lines is, because the enemy will zero in on on the trucks, trying not to get the ammunition up there where it belongs. So I said, heck yes, it'll get me back away from here for a little bit. Back up. So that's what I ended up with, MOS. Ended up being a corporal then.
You said it was 40 below in that winter.
Yeah.
Was there a certain spot that you were in Korea?
A certain spot, certain area.
Certain area.
Well, we was north of the 38th parallel, which is the Han River. Right. That is, you never forget that. That's the separation between north and south, the Han River. And that's 38th parallel, and we were just north of that. So a lot of our tanks was around Shoreline, C-H-O-R. I spelled that. It's in here somewhere.
Okay.
We was in that area most of the time. The thing that really, the Army, they worked funny. They would send you up and you, where I can see them in this or no. Well, you can't see them in here, but up in these hills, the North Koreans, they dug tunnels straight back, maybe 8 or 10 feet. Then they'd go off 90 degrees, maybe another 8 or 10 feet of tunnel, and then going back in. And the reason for that was when you fired in there, you wasn't hitting anybody. But what we ended up doing was using what we called phosphorus rounds, but they were fire. And then from the smoke and all that, from the rounds going off as they entered, they suffocated. So we used a lot of those phosphorus rounds. Of course, we used other hard ammunition, shells, if you was going to hit something big. But when you was trying to flush out the infantry, so to speak,
sure,
you want to, I shouldn't say it, but you want to get rid of them that way.
You wanted to clean off the tunnel.
Yeah, you want to clean out the tunnel. And basically, that was the operation of our tanks, because we wasn't. All the time I was there, we was never actually confronted by too many ground force enemies. What they would do is, where it hurt us, was they would sneak in at night towards us, and they would set up what we call track mines and blow our tracks off our tanks if we run over. And they had personnel mines too, and that's where a lot of our personnel lost legs and things like that. They'd step on them. But these track mines, they would, maybe one of our tracks would get and blow our track off. We'd just sit there and go in a circle. And then they'd try to zero in on us. So basically that was our enemy.
Right. I'm still going on the 40 below.
Yeah.
Did the Army equip you personally to handle that?
Well, yes.
Clothes?
Well, yes. Otherwise, we'd froze to death.
Right.
We had what we called snow packs, and they were a big, heavy boot, and they had about 1 inch. It was gray colored, some kind of insulation in them. And basically, they'd keep you from freezing to death. But at nighttime, it was rough because you had what we called big, heavy sleeping bags. But I'll tell you, the worst thing was about 30 days of that. Try not taking a bath in 30 days. Try to go to the bathroom. There's no buildings over there. Up where we was at. There was a few of the, what I would call it, houses left where the South Koreans lived. Well, we never got into any of them. You'll see some pictures in here I've taken, or I took, black and white pictures. We just had, sometimes we'd set up tents.
Right.
And then the diesel fuel we used in our engines and everything, we would make little pot-bellied stoves and try to burn that diesel fuel to keep warm. But basically, you was not on your own because you had all the guys around you, but you just tried to keep warm the best way you could.
So, I mean,
there was no buildings.
That's what I was going to say.
No furnaces.
No buildings.
No buildings. No buildings. It was rough.
And I assume it was snow.
Oh yes, yeah, not great amounts. As you can see, there's some on the ground, but not great amounts. But it was, well, I'll show you. I'll show you a picture there when I went back to get ammunition and back to the headquarters company, which is about 2 miles back. The diesel fuel on 50-gallon drums. We had to roll them around and put the fuel in, and back we was eat. I'm going to jump from one thing to
You're
another.
fine.
We was a lot of the other guys. I've got some friends that I play bluegrass music with here now that was over in Korea at the same time I was. They was in the infantry. And Bob, I'll see him tonight, but Bob April, he said, "How did you get out of Korea so fast?" I don't know why, but the 72nd Tank Battalion, they told us when we went there, they said, you have to get 36 points to rotate out of Korea, out of combat. And it was combat all the time we was there except for a few hours.
Okay.
You had to get 36 points. You got 4 points a month for frontline duty. With that said, 4 points a month, 9 months, I'll be out of here.
Right.
Well, I did get out. I did rotate out back in 10 months. But we had to wait for a replacement to come in from America, from the United States, before we could rotate out. But I did get my 36 points in 10 months and rotated out. And we certainly did look forward to that.
Oh.
The only break, excuse me, I don't mean to interrupt you, but if I don't talk while I'm out. Anyhow, the only break we had, we got what they called R&R, rest and recuperation. We called it other things, which I won't repeat. Went back to Japan. So they flew us back to Japan for 5 days, 4 days and 5 nights, or one or the other. So back to Japan. And you talk about, oh my Lord. I mean, there's only 2 things to do in that: eat and meet the geisha girls.
Right.
So that was the only break we got.
Especially once you got cleaned up. I mean.
Well, yeah. Oh, and by the way, getting cleaned up. I hope you're not recording this.
Yeah, I am, but I can cut it or we can keep it. It don't matter.
Well, I mean, they treat you like kings back in Japan. I mean, these girls do, of course, naturally. You're going to pay them money for that. But they treat you like kings, and in Japan, they have, not as big as square as that thing is right there, they have a deep tub. So when you take baths of it, they have a deep tub. It's all probably up to your waist. Real hot water. Boy, when you step in it, you know when your body's got in there. And it's real hot. And then you get out. And then these ladies, they scrub you down. And then what happens after that, I'm not going to record.
That's okay. We'll leave that to the imagination. I never served in the military, so I don't have any idea.
You had told me that.
Did it make it harder on you, do you think, getting that R&R to go back? Or do you think?
Yes, because I was confined in my bunk for 24 hours after I got back. I mean, she was so exhausted.
Oh.
And had drank so much. I mean, well, you're on the front line.
Right.
Naturally, you're going to do those.
Sure you are. And you're a young man.
Well, I'm sorry. I've stated that wrong. It's been 60-some years. No, I was confined in my bunk for 12 hours, not 24. But I was exhausted when I got back. And naturally, medics put me in my bunk for 12 hours. Believe you me, I slept.
How many, you say you drove for the ammo, did you drive like once a day or how many trips a day?
It all depends on how much firing they've done with the big guns. And then, of course, you carried The 76 millimeters on them M4 Shermans. In fact, there was stickers inside them tanks. They come from the Second World War from the Philippines. That's where we got them from, in Korea. And they had a 76 millimeter on there. And then, of course, the guy that fires the cannon out of the tanks, he has of course, a turret's up on top. And if he wants to raise that turret, there's a 50-gallon machine gun up there. Well, when I was a bulk driver, there was a 30 caliber machine gun there, and that you can scope through and you can fire it.
Okay.
So that's basically where the fire comes from the tanks. It's a 76 millimeter, the 30 caliber with the bulk driver, and the 50 caliber out of the turret if he wants to stick his head out.
Right.
So basically, all that. The reason I'm getting into this is because we hold all that ammunition. Those 3 different calibers basically had to hold up to the tanks.
So some days you might make more than one trip?
Well, I would say probably very seldom we made more than one trip because it was 4 or 5 of us doing it.
Okay.
There was 4 or 5 of us trucks. And that's one reason I think that they asked for volunteers to do it is because, like I'm repeating myself, but the enemy, if they could fire in on you and blow up them convoy trucks, then they knew they didn't have near as much to worry about when you got up the front lines. Basically, that's what it amounts to.
You were rolling targets.
It was rolling targets, yes.
I mean, without really any defense.
Well, there's no defense because
Right.
you're driving your truck, and if they zero in and they hit you, I mean, you're going.
Did you ever lose anybody that
Oh, yeah,
way? Or?
yeah, we lost them. Right now, I'm in touch, after all these years, I'm in touch with a fellow, Rod King. He's in Utah. He's the only one, I'm not saying he's the only one left out of my company. I'm saying he's the only one I'm aware of
Sure.
that's left. So I know of several of them that have passed away. Like when we took the honor flight, there was 8, I think I might have told you on the phone, there was 86 of us on that honor flight. We just took it in June.
Okay.
And there was 2 World War II veterans in that 86. And it was either 8 or 10 of us Korean veterans, all the rest were Vietnam. And then basically that's where the guys were dying off.
Sure.
We're dying off fast because, like I said, I'm 87, getting ready to turn 88. And if they didn't make it back, I mean, you know,
Right.
that's old people's dying off.
So you did 10 months in Korea?
I did 10 months in Korea.
And then
Shipped out. And then I got shipped when I'm gonna backtrack a minute.
that's right.
We was going over. I went over on board ship out of Seattle, Washington. Let's see, we was 11 days going over, and they wasn't too anxious to. I'm laughing because they wasn't too anxious to get back, but I'll get to that in a minute. We was 10 days going over on board ship, and of course we hit Japan. Then they moved us through Japan on a train, and flew us on into Korea then. But coming back, we was 15 days coming back on board ship. And you know, Doug, one of the emotional things, I keep referring to this, one of the emotional things about this was Korean vets were a lot worse than we was. Nobody believed in the Korean War. And I understand that. Well, a lot of people didn't believe the Vietnam War.
Right.
And very few people believed in the Korean War. And they still refer to it as a Korean conflict. And that upset some of us veterans because
Right.
we was in combat. It was a war. But out of that, it was just a very emotional thing to take us on a flight.
So when you got home, I mean, you talked about.
Excuse me, I can get back to that. I get
Okay.
sidetracked trying
You're
to remember things. When I got back, I had 4 months to pull before my 2 years was up. Because I enlisted, or I didn't enlist, I was drafted for 2 years. So they brought me through the States and they gave me 30 days, or give all of us 30 days. We went home for 30 days and then they sent me to Camp Rooker, Alabama. And that was a National Guard camp at that time. It ended up being some kind of an Air Force after But anyhow, they sent me to Camp Rooker, Alabama, and I got hooked up with a sergeant that had just come back from Europe, Sergeant Sam Sim, and he's brought his wife back, and he had one kid. Anyhow, got hooked up with him down there, and he just got back from Europe, and he was a sergeant and took a liking to me, and this was a National Guard outfit. The lieutenant that was commanding that was, they always looked to us combat veterans. So these National Guard fellows had never been overseas or nothing, so they sort of give us, I don't know, preference or whatever you want to call it. And I had a corporal's rank, and Sergeant Sim, he's a sergeant. So they put us in a motor pool and put him in charge of part of the motor pool and me partly in charge of the motor pool. So I served 4 months there and then got discharged 4 months later and then come on home. So I served 4 months out of from being in combat after I got back. And it got discharged in December of 73, I think. Or 93, or 73.
53.
53, I'm sorry.
That's fine.
All these,
I do it all the time.
Well,
How were you treated when you came home?
Wasn't.
Just
ignored. Just ignored.
You were just supposed to just hang up your uniform and get back to work?
Yeah.
Raise your family and
that
go
was
on
it, basically. And I lost, I don't know how many we lost in Korea, but in the Vietnam War, I lost 2 cousins and 1 friend, and that was in '69. They were killed in the Vietnam War, but they were treated worse than us. In fact, I was talking to Doug just the other day, and a couple, there's, in fact, where we play music down here in Hebron, I talked to one of them, talked to him all the time, but I asked Sarge the other day, we call him Sarge, his name's Al. I said, you still got a lot of your stuff from your time in service? He said, you know what, Red? He said, I burned my uniform. I said, why? He said, they spit on me when we got back. It was just emotional. Sorry.
No, you're right. It is.
Now, they didn't spit on us Koreans that I know of, but they did on the Vietnam veterans. But as far as the Korean veterans is concerned, all of them that I've talked to or been in contact with over the years, we was just ignored. I've still got my uniform. Of course, can't get in it. Even though I'm still slim. Believe it or not, I got the same weight as when I left overseas right now, and I'm 87 years old. But it's settled a little bit.
Right. Sweet distributed.
Yeah. It's just settled a little bit. 28-inch waist when I went over, now I'm 34. Have been that way for all this year.
Well, that's not bad.
Well, my wife gets disgusted. She said, you men that can hold your figure and us women. That has nothing to do with this. I'm just rattling on.
That's fine. So when you got out, did you go back to Laurelville and have your job again?
No. In fact, when I was drafted out of Columbus.
Oh, okay.
My people had brought me to Columbus when I was a young boy. In fact, I was born and raised. Have you ever heard of the Rock House, Old Man's Cave, and that?
Yes.
Well, I was born just over the hill from the Old Man's Cave.
Okay.
No, I was just an old country boy. Shocked corn by hand and all that kind of stuff when I was a kid. Made I think about 12.5 cents a shock chocolate corn. Then I'm just an old country boy. But life's been good to me. I wasn't injured from fire when I was over there. But after I brought a load of ammunition back, there was 2 rounds of 76 millimeter shells in a case, in a wooden case. And these South Korean, we called them laborers. They would be up there with us because the army would give them food and house some of them. And they would unload the trucks. And of course, to put the 76 millimeter shell in the tanks, you had to stand up on the tank and drop them down, not drop them in, but hand them in to men in below. Well, there's two Koreans. I had turned around. I was unloading. I was standing on top of the tank, and one of them put one of them cases, two shells in a case, on top of my foot and crushed my left foot. Now, they didn't take me out of service, but I went into the medic tent on account of that. But that was my only major injury, which was lucky for me, because a lot of them, you see them coming back from the front lines of the infantry, and they would haul them back in the back end of a Jeep, and the Jeep was extended back, a bed was, and it was like what do you want to call it, a gurney in there, you know. And what you seen coming back, it was terrible. I mean, parts of their body weren't there. Heading back to the medic tank.
Sure.
It's a little bit off the subject of us, but it's all part of our experience.
Yeah, it's part of what, like you say, you experience.
Yeah, anytime you want to, I'll show you this other pictures of. You can take very few pictures of actually in combat or when you're up there, because you don't have time to take pictures. You got to watch out for yourself. And I'll have to say this, and I've said this to a lot of people. My wife and I are religious people. Of course, this is after I got back. I didn't even know her before. But I'll tell you, the first time I really done any praying was over there, especially at nighttime. If you would take your ammunition up to the tanks, and of course it was up there, and at nighttime over there, it's dark. I mean, it is pitch dark. There's no lights, and you got to be careful. If you have any lights, you don't want them shining. They're going to zero in on you. So it's pitch dark, and if you're ever scared, that's when you're going to be scared. You can, honestly, you can't over at night. You couldn't see your hand from your face. I mean, that's how dark it is. I mean, there's no lights for miles. You're in rice paddies. You're on hills. And the only roads over there was dirt, what there was. In fact, when we went back to Seoul, or the ammunition, I forget what they call it, to get the ammunition and engine parts and stuff like that, when our tanks got damaged, some of the streets in Seoul were still dirt. I see pictures today of modern high-rise buildings in Seoul. I didn't see none of that. We didn't see none of that. You'll see a couple pictures in here, what we call honey buckets, where they carried our waste out to the rice paddy. And you'll see some in here. I've got some in here. One of the funniest things ever happened, where I should tell this and be recorded or not, there was 3 of our trucks. We were going back to the quartermaster to pick one of our tanks. The engine got burned up because the track got blew off, and trying to get out of there. Well, he burned his engine up trying to get out of it. Well, he just kept going. So anyhow, we was going back after ammunition and this engine. And I wasn't the lead truck. I was second in. And the lead truck, just as we was hitting the edge of Seoul, going in on this dirt street, here come one of these ox carts with a honey bucket. Well, the front truck didn't get stopped. He hit that honey bucket. That went all over that engine, and it was terrible. We was trying to get that out of that truck. Never mind. That's the end of that stuff.
That was nasty.
Oh, that was nasty. But that's the way they fertilize their rice paddies. Right. So I'm just rattling on.
You're fine. So in June, you got to do an honor flight.
In June the 10th of this year. Well, they had been after me. My people that does my taxes, which is a Wiggins company and happens to be in Columbus. They've been doing it for 40-something years. Anyhow, he's been after me. He in the service, and he said, Red, he said, you got to take that honor flight. Well, finally, I went this year. You got to sign up ahead of time, and you have to wait maybe 4 to 6 months or so, depending on how many gets to go. So I finally took it in June the 10th, and I have to repeat myself. It was the most exciting, sad thing in a way. But I've been to Washington. My wife was raised a while in Washington, D.C. when she was a child, so she knew a little bit about it. We've been over it several times. And I'd seen the Vietnam War. I had not seen the Korean Memorial. And I wanted to see that. You'll see a picture of that in here when I show it to you. I had not seen that. I was anxious to see that. But it was very emotional. When we got there and got out of the bus, which we did a few times, the streets were lined with people. And we had I don't know whether it was police or what they were, but they took us through. Never stopped for a traffic light. That's the only time we legally went through red lights. But it was very emotional.
So
That's about all I can say.
So you were glad you went.
Oh my! Oh, I'd do it again.
Yeah.
And when you look at spatially the Arlington Cemetery, and of course I'd been there before and I'd seen Kennedy's grave with they got that flame there for him. And Pat and I had seen that, but it's just one of those things I'm going to take to my grave with.